Hello, everybody. So I'm Sable. I'm your host. This is Full Out Healing, and welcome back. This is episode 7, and today's topic is I thought I was investing in our healing. Okay, this is all types of juicy. So I can't wait to get into this. I'm excited to do this episode because I really wish that I don't know, I want to say I had someone to talk to, but maybe I wasn't ready to talk, right? So this is a topic I really wish I heard things about, that I wish I could have plugged into a conversation about this. And so I'm so excited to do this episode for that reason. And I hope, I'm interested to know if it could do the same for you. Okay. So I thought I was investing in our future. Now, in the past, and again, I'm going to talk about how I related to this idea in the past, how I relate to it now, and my hopes for the future. So in the past, I'm thinking about, shortly after we moved in and the violent, chaotic nights began. And I was kind of in shock and a whiplash, and was trying to make sense of it all. And, I really had a preoccupation with being a good partner. And I think in that space, which is a whole other podcast episode. But because of that, I was also just trying to make sense of what was happening. And so I went to her to make sense of it, because I thought that's what you do in relationships. I thought it would have been hurting the relationship to go outside of it to solve problems. At least I feel like I didn't know what the balance was between talking about my stuff or being gossipy or hurting the relationship. And I look back on it now, and I know and understand that I struggled to make that distinction, because I grew up with a lot of secrets. There were a lot of secrets in my family, and I really grew up with this association that, talking about family business is capital offense number 1. And so because of that, I didn't have an opportunity to develop the muscle to make that the muscle that helps you discern when is appropriate, when is not, or when it's appropriate versus when it's a breach of privacy. So yeah. But in the space of it all, that's why these things were happening, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And kind of one way I started to make sense of it, was is this, because, ironically or not, I don't know, but we talked a lot about healing. We talked a lot about trauma. I had been interested in self-help stuff for my entire adult life, reading books, TED Talks, always interested in self-improvement. And my ex-wife was a full-on social worker, which is, full stop, a whole nother conversation. But this was a topic of a general topic in our relationship. And so as I was trying to grapple with and make sense of what was happening, it just, one of the things I was reaching for was maybe this is what healing intergenerational trauma looks like. All the bad stuff kicks up. And because in relationships, we trigger each other, humans trigger each other. And so in that, we talk about it and we recognize it, and, we try a new reaction, parentheses, me, I'm supposed to try something new. And another thought that I had was like, well, like, there's no roadmap, you know? We're the first ones in our families making a choice to like disrupt generational patterns as it relates to trauma. And maybe this is what it looks like to fumble through it because we don't know what we're doing, but we're trying, right? That is how I used to think about the whole I thought I was investing in our healing. Now, how I felt about it, honestly, there was a part of me that felt useful. You know, I know that's I even saying it out loud makes me a little. I feel uncomfortable about it, which is telling me I probably still have shame that I felt this way. But yeah, I felt useful. I think it made me feel I don't know if it's needed, but just the whole fact that like it felt like it meant something that we are vanguarding this path to break cycles. Like that meant something to me. And it meant something to me before the relationship. And as I'm talking through this, I'm like, wow, that was like totally like co-opted and weaponized against me. But like, you know, before the relationship in my adult life, I had struggled with relationships with different family members and had gone through really painful iterations of needing to set boundaries and have distance. And I felt so much hurt and isolation in that. And I sort of had accepted not being understood. And yet I knew it was necessary for my well-being. And so I thought maybe this is like another really painful thing to move through that is whatever. I also felt lost because, you know, yes, I said I went through this whole tangent where I talked about how I feel useful, but I felt lost because it just didn't feel right. I felt lost because I felt like I didn't know what to say, what to do, how to feel. None of it was ever okay. And I felt like I almost couldn't speak because I just felt like nothing I could do would ever be right. I felt, you know, really unsure, like, of myself. And also, oddly enough, like, I felt hopeful. Now, I think this is where I'm going to say this. I see that I felt helpful, and I look back on it and recognize it as like, this is like what I'm going to give some humor and then I'm going to bring it back to compassion. Okay. I look back on it and I think about, you know, on Drag Race, how they talk about like delusion, like how some queens have like a level of delusion about reality. I look back and I'm like, girl, you delusional. Okay. I had to say that because any opportunity at a Drag Race reference, I must speak to it because it brings me genuine joy. But like back on the compassion side, you know, I did feel hopeful. I felt hopeful because I thought that, you know, I felt helpful because in my mind, we are doing some root cause shit. And which means it's going to be ugly for a while. It's not going to be great for a while, but then the skies will clear out and everything will be so much better. Like I to some extent understood that this was not, I understood that this was a valley, but I thought the valley would end, you know? And the narrative that was kind of held in that relationship was like, oh, we're, you know, this is we're at the forefront because we inherited toxicity, and this is uncharted waters for us. We're doing new things and, don't know how to do it, but it's because we inherited toxicity and we're making a new choice. And so that's what this is about. This is the part I think about this narrative that existed in that relationship, and there's a part of me that still feels mad about it. And I feel mad because it's so fucking unjust, but I also accept it for what it was and what it has revealed to me about myself. That's it. So I'm just gonna say that. But I remember, I think it was surrounding, we had started to do couples therapy, and I had asked her, maybe it was before couples therapy, I'm not sure, but I had asked her well, do you think that our relationship is healthy or unhealthy? Because I think I remember that's when there were more conversations on social media about that. You can see posts your relationship is healthy when, unhealthy when. And I'm yeah. So I was do you think it's healthy or unhealthy or toxic? And she legit said, which, there was sort of a power dynamic around it. I kind of did defer to her thought because she was a social worker, and also I look back and I was I knew, I'll just leave it at that. Well, her response was, and then this became the narrative, that our relationship is beyond the binary of healthy versus unhealthy. And in fact, she felt very frustrated by that binary and that dynamic, and how there's more, and not even that it's more of a spectrum, but she was just we're outside of that paradigm altogether. And not only that, that paradigm doesn't even apply to us because it's a binary, and binaries are evil, and they're based on being heteronormative and based off of constrictions rooted in white supremacy, literally. And so that effectively meant that had the impact of making anything that was, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'll just say that, right? So that was a narrative in our relationship. Our relationship is outside of the binary of healthy versus unhealthy and toxic, because binaries are inherently rooted in an identity-based social injustice that directly impacted us as Black queer women. So we had to discard that framework altogether. At the time, I believed that I was not good at relationships because I didn't have a lot of relationship experience. I had one other serious relationship and had not dated that much. And to be totally honest with you, this is something I felt deeply insecure about. I felt deeply insecure about which, of course, in early dating, I thought I was being vulnerable and sharing this, but this came back to bite me throughout the relationship. But yeah, I thought I was not good at relationships. I believe that about myself. I also believed that I didn't have enough experience with queerness, even though I had been out since college. But I think part of it was not having that much relationship experience, and then also just being femme and passing as straight. I had a core sense of not enoughness, and that really did open the door for not feeling enough, at my core, just really opened the door for like trying to find it outside of myself. And so it literally, I could have like not had any relationship experience, or I could have been a total thought. Like it all would have amounted to something's not enough about me and I have to go outside of me. Also, I believed that, I therefore, because of that belief, I really did believe I had to go outside of myself for like rules on a way of being or like an authority. And, you know, my ex was more than happy to oblige and be that person. Today, we're in the present, y'all. When I think about this idea of like, I thought I was investing in our healing, I now know that even if I am in uncharted territory as a cycle breaker, there is no, none of that, like the unknown of it all does not include unsafety. Straight up, like it just doesn't. I don't know what the answers are. I don't know what my exact path looks like, but if I don't feel safe, if I don't feel safe, then I know this shit is not it. And it's that simple. That's what I understand today. I also look back on this and I'm like, oh my God, they really pulled out some mental ass gymnastics to totally skirt accountability. And not just accountability, like it's a step further than that. These mental gymnastics really helped evade even the recognition of toxicity, and also simultaneously devalued and diminished any resources that could have helped me to like identify that myself. You know, it's like it made, and I, as I'm saying this, I'm recognizing that's part of like the isolation that was slowly built over time, you know? When I think about how I feel sad for me again, because that's fucking awful. Like it was a really shitty place to be. I felt so tight and constricted, and it felt like I was in a room with the walls were closing in on me. And I just like have so much compassion for myself. And I think even as I say, like, share all of this, I feel like there's some more work for me to do, because there is like a glimmer of like, oh my God, like I feel like there's a little bit of a shame trigger, because I can almost observe the thought of like, that was so fucking dumb. Like, you're so fucking dumb. Like, how could I be so fucking dumb for like believing all this dumb shit? And that's really harsh and critical and unkind. And in some ways, it's also progress, because the fact that I was genuinely confused, and like I genuinely did not know what to believe. And it feels like progress, because now I feel so fucking clear. Like, but it's unshakable how clear I am on the fucked upness of it all. And that feels like a true win. That feels like a celebration in its own right, you know? And so that's survivorship, right? Like, you know, an aha moment with compassion triggered by shame, topped off with a celebration of a milestone. Like, that is the fucking journey. The narrative I hold now is, this is a phrase I absolutely used to hate. Now I feel neutral about it. And it's love is love. Part of the reason why I hated love is because I feel like the people who don't care about queer people's humanity and rights, they don't care about whether or not we love or not. Like it's a response to a gaslight. But I digress, okay? But anyway, the narrative that I hold true now is love is love and abuse is abuse. Straight up. And because of that, like, connecting recognition of abuse to identity markers is dangerous because it really leaves so many humans it's not even a crack, fall into the gaping wide Grand Canyon of it all when we attach abusive behaviors and traits to specific identity markers. I just don't think anyone wins. I honestly don't even think it serves the people, like when it comes to like domestic violence and abuse. Like, typically the conversation is pretty heteronormative, and I, as with many things in the United States, tend to center people who are like white and middle class. And like, I think, thank you Lifetime for the image of what that looks like, and I don't even think how we think about intimate partner violence serves middle class white women. Like, I don't even think it helps them, to be honest. And so, yeah, it just feels like a lose-lose-lose situation. And I just don't think that, the narrative I hold is basically that, like, part of what made it so hard to recognize the abuse is all of those attachments to identity marker things. And there were so many things I just dismissed as not possible or stayed confused about because, I'm a Black queer woman and so is my partner. What I believe now is that how I feel is evidence enough for any experience. Like, I don't care what I'm doing for the first time in my life, in any area of my life. How I feel, that's enough evidence for deciding if I want to continue to engage, how I want to show up. Like, how I feel is straight up enough. I also believe that having more experience than another person, it doesn't mean that you have more authority or more valid. Because honestly, that's none of my business, because you can have all the experience in the world, but what experience do you have with me? Like, that's literally what matters. And at best, more experience, at absolute best, should mean that you have more understanding of yourself. That's it. That's like at best. You have more self-knowledge. You are more clear on your inner authority. You know where you end and another person begins. That's it. No, you know where you end, period. Like, it's not a reason or justification for more control. That's just not it. I'm hoping that, I actually really, really hope, and maybe, hopefully, this podcast and this show will be a part of that. But in the future, I'm really hoping for like a disruptive conversation about what's healthy and what's not healthy in relationships, particularly for people who are cycle breakers, right? So people who maybe experienced or inherited dysfunction or trauma, and like who've made the conscious choice to do something different. And in the process of that making that choice, there's like a lot of learning involved. And I would love to see a conversation about navigating and exploring relationships in that space. And I'm not saying that all cycle breakers experience intimate partner violence. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that I think that I feel like this conversation could be like a training wheels or a bridge to support people who are, are wanting to do and show up in healthy ways, and maybe don't know how, or don't know how to recognize the different parts of it. And then last, my desire for you, but mostly for me. And there's no limited amount, but I really, I just want to forever trust my own feelings as like my own inner authority. That is such a huge desire of mine, because it's a process to prepare for these episodes, and I'm kind of traveling back in time, and I'm sitting back at the end of this, and I'm like, this particular episode, I'm like, that was some crazy shit. Like, that is crazy making. And it feels like such a faraway land and moment and even person, but I know she's still within me. It just feels so far away to be a part of the world where up was down, and it was just really hard and really scary and so sad. And I look, just reconnecting with all of the feelings that I had then and where I'm at now. It's funny, like, thinking back on it, it doesn't, maybe this is helping the shame go away, because I'm realizing, looking back on it, I don't feel ashamed. Looking back on it, I just feel like fortified in this conviction and in this commitment to be my own inner rock and to trust me. Like, I can trust me, and I got it. Like, I have all the information I need to be safe and be well and to navigate this world, still being a human, still having human challenges, And so, yeah, I'm kind of sitting in that. So I guess I want to extend gratitude for you, because just reflecting on this is like reconnecting me to that. And I'm grateful for that. Yeah. So thanks so much. I will see you next time on Full Out Healing. Bye, y'all.